Guys, welcome back to our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to take some time to share a couple of stories with you regarding the temperature that we're all dealing with our culture, or the climate, if you will, that we're facing. And we've been facing this for a while now. It's just to the point where, enough is enough, and we're talking about injustice, social injustice, racial injustice, and the disparities that we all face. If you were able to listen to my podcast that I sent out earlier, it had to do with the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I talked about the differences, and I'll put the link in the comments at the end of this video. But I thought about sharing a couple of stories that I think would highlight or at least illustrate what I mean by that in a more personal way. The first story has to do with my dad. So it's a little personal, but I figured it would help someone if I share it. And basically, my dad is an avid Mets fan, New York Mets fan. I grew up a Mets fan alongside with him. He absolutely disliked the Yankees. Would always say, I hate that team is no good, and just had this dislike towards them. Another thing interesting about my dad is that growing up, he would always share with us the dislike for a specific ethnicity. We never understood why. We were taught not to ask questions to adults, and so it was just a thing for him, which is interesting because growing up, and even till today, I have many friends of that ethnicity that are great friends, and never really took upon that fixed mindset, if you will, that he had towards this specific ethnicity. But it taught me, and this is why I wanted to share this with you today, it taught me that it came from somewhere. It had a genesis. So when I was in college, I had a project that I had to do, and it had to do with a genogram. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, a genogram is basically a graph of your genealogy. You had to interview your parents or a historian that could help you tell you the story of your genealogy, your parents, their parents, the siblings, all of the people involved as far back as you can go. And the objective was to highlight patterns that you would see, or similarities that you would see along the genealogy, both the paternal side and the maternal side. And then that helps you look towards your own life and your own family and those that come after you, your children, your grandchildren, for those specific patterns and things that are similar for you to look out for. So I obviously couldn't interview my dad. He is very private. He is not the type of person to really disclose or share a lot unless he's drunk. But that's, limited to certain things. So I knew that I had to take advantage of the interview that I would do with my mom. And so she was very helpful and shared a lot of information regarding her side of the family, which took a while. She's one of 16. So you know how that is. And then when she started sharing about my dad and his family, one of the things that she told me was that, which I didn't know, that his father, my paternal grandfather, left the family and began a new family with a woman that is from another ethnicity. Now, you're following me, right? That specific ethnicity is the one that my dad would always have all of these comments about, that he totally disliked. And it dawned on me, he said, whoa, okay, there's a connection. He has this resentment towards this specific ethnicity because of what he experienced through his dad. His dad left the family, started a new family, and that family happened to be half our ethnicity and half the other ethnicity that my father does not like. So that made sense. The other thing that we discovered was that out of that family that my grandfather started anew, they had a son, and that son became a baseball player, and you guessed it, was drafted and played for the New York Yankees. And my father absolutely despises the Yankees. And it was like, wow, now I understand why my dad would say the things that he would say. He just didn't know how to deal with it. He had to go to the extreme of resenting this specific ethnicity and also this specific franchise or organization. And it sounds silly, but it's to me it's powerful, because it shows or it highlights how so many people in our society today have their fixed mindsets. They have their backgrounds, their experiences, their luggage, if you will, that they bring with them when dealing with specific things. And a lot of that has to do with hatred, racism. A lot of it has to do with so many decisions that they make based out of what they've experienced or what they believed. And it made me realize that if I share this, I think it'll help some people kind of understand where a lot of this is coming from, where people say what they say and it's hateful, and say what they say with sting in it. And you would wonder, why does this person hate this specific race, this specific ethnicity, gender? Why do people do that? Well, it comes from somewhere, and it doesn't excuse it. It doesn't justify it. It only helps us see it for what it is. It's something that I like to attribute it to a fixed mindset. When you come to a thought process and engage in conversation with someone that has a fixed mindset, it's very difficult to get them to understand where you're coming from, because this is their experience. It's been hardwired. Literally, your brain depends on your mind and the thoughts that you give it to develop. And so if in your mind you have these emotions that are creating hardwiring in your brain, then that's what your brain is going to look like. It's going to have hardwiring of hate, resentment, of mistrust, of rejection. All of these things that we feel are processed in our minds and hardwired in our brains. And so I felt sharing that with you all, because we're dealing with very, very difficult people, and it's a difficult mindset that we have to break. And one of the ways that we can do that is understanding. And the second way of doing that is having compassion and empathy and love towards them, to say, I may not understand why specifically you feel the way you feel, but let me have a conversation with you about why you may choose to feel different about it. Because a lot of times we want to convince people how wrong they are, but we're not expressing, the love that we know we have, and they can't see that. And so that's why I applaud, the protests. I applaud people, sharing their stance and how they feel about the injustice, the social injustice, the racial injustice that we're dealing with. There's gender injustice. There's so many injustices that we're facing. And so please speak up, share your thoughts about it in a loving way. I know that it may seem like it's a daunting task and that it falls on deaf ears, but let me tell you, when you have earned a right to speak into people's lives, they will listen to you, and they will cross from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And I'll leave you with this last story, which was a personal story of mine. I was on a plane, as I always am, right? And I was sitting in first class, getting myself ready to listen or watch a movie. Sometimes I listen to a podcast or an audiobook. But this time, I don't remember if it was a movie, but I was gathering my AirPods and my iPad, and sitting next to me was an older white lady. And she seemed very nice, smiling. And as I was gathering my things, usually people say, what's your name? What do you do for a living? Where's home for you, etc. She did not ask me any of those questions. As a matter of fact, she didn't ask me any questions. She looked at me and she said, "You must be a baseball player." What? I did not know what to do with that. I looked at her and kind of gave a weird smile and said, no, I'm not. And proceeded to put my earbuds in my ears. And I was just like, what in the world did that mean? And that's an example of the type of mindsets that we face today. There are people that have no idea that what they actually say is prejudice, it's racial, it's stereotypical. I mean, they don't realize that they have these underlying issues that they won't admit that they're issues, but they are. It is not okay to say something like that. It is not okay to say, he speaks very well. For Hispanic? For a black person? I mean, what does that mean? It is not okay. Listen to me. It is not okay to say these things. We are labeling people based on their race, their gender, their ethnicity, and it is not okay. We are all one thing. Human beings. That's what we are. We're all human beings. We're all created by God. We are all created with a purpose, for a purpose. And it is not to look at each other with this disdain, with this mistrust, with this dislike. No, we have to come against all types of injustices, racial, ethnicity types, gender type, status type. We have to come against all of this because at the end of the day, we are all created equal. I work in the organ donation world, and if you ever would see a transplant, an actual recovery in a transplant, the organs that we all carry are all the same. They're all the same color inside. When you open me up, you're going to see that I'm the same color inside as you are. And so let's promote the message of love and acceptance that we are who we are because we're all created equal. We are all one. We're all human beings. God bless you.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. For more information, visit our website at juangarciaenterprises.com. Our host, Juan Garcia, is available for speaking, coaching, and one-on-one counseling. You can email us at info@juangarciaenterprises.com. Until next time, remember, we only have one mind, so mind yours.